Welcome to Dr. Grant's The Athlos Life podcast, where we interview lifelong athletes who've become masters in their fields, whether in the realm of athletics or in areas of business, leadership, writing, speaking, medicine, or any other areas that they have proven to be high achievers. Through the world of athletics, we learn lessons in performance, health, leadership, and excellence, and explore the application of these lessons into the rest of our lives through laid back conversations with athletes and people of excellence. Please do not assume any information on this podcast to be medical advice, and please always seek the expertise of your personal healthcare provider. Now, join us in leveling up through lessons from training, competition, and pursuing excellence. Take four. We've had a little bit of technical difficulties, but it's not going to stop us. We're really excited for this episode with Georgi Ivanov. Georgi, I got a chance to meet him when we wrestled at the Masters Nationals, the U.S. Open. Had the unfortunate event of getting to draw him my first round, but it was an awesome match. At least for me, I had a great time. I really wanted to bring him on so he could give some of his expertise and history. I think there's a lot of lessons we can all learn from Georgi. So without further ado, hey, Georgie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history, your background, your wrestling background specifically, and let's jump in.
Justin, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. That I'm literally honored, and it's my pleasure. Yes, my history. I've wrestled since I was 3 years old. I grew up in Bulgaria. I came to the U.S. when I was 16 for the purpose of, chasing more opportunities and having a better life. I was a pretty well established wrestler at that time for on the cadets. Back then, it was the cadets age group and 17U. I was a four-time national champion. I was fifth in Europe, and I was doing really well. I was living in a hotel, and I was on a stipend, and my job was just to be an athlete, and it was going great until the coach kicked me off the team because I got injured, and they didn't want to be liable. So for me, it was a aha moment where I needed to change my lifestyle and have a backup plan with education. And so that's when I made it a goal to come to the US. So I was able to come and visit when I was 16, and I never went back. I stayed for 9 years before I actually went back to the US. I came by myself without family and without speaking the language. So it was a cultural shock, to say the least. But I made it. We're here, and it was great. I once I came to the US, I wrestled in Iowa. I wrestled in Fargo. I had a pretty good showing. I believe I was as high as number four in my weight class nationally. And then I got recruited to wrestle at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. It was Division II school, powerhouse. We were three times. I was on three national championship teams, and then they dropped wrestling. So when they dropped us, I transferred to Boise State out in Idaho, and I finished my collegiate career there. I was there for 2 years. And after Boise, Coach Mike Denny, who was my coach at UNO, recruited me to go and coach with him down in St. Louis at Maryville University. And I went to Maryville University. I got my master's degree out of there, and I coached. I was an associate head coach down there for 4 years, and that's when for the first time, I went and competed freestyle, and like the first time in 6 years. And some of the guys on the team challenged me to go and compete at the Dave Schultz Memorial in Colorado Springs. And so I entered that, and I ended up winning it. I beat a guy that took third at Worlds and third at the Olympics in the finals. And so that's when I went back to Bulgaria, made the world team in 2015. And then I went to Mongolia for the first World Olympic qualifier. And I took second at that tournament, and I qualified for the Olympics in Rio in 2016. And that was my competitive career.
Man, that's a lot. So we actually have a little bit of in common then. We wrestled in college at the same time, Division II, while you were at UNO. Something I didn't realize. I still remember after you guys won national championship, like the next day we heard the program was dropped. That was insane.
Yeah. So yeah,
Go
that was
ahead.
in Kearney. Nationals was in Kearney.
Yep, it was. I was at that nationals as well. I lost in the blood round to All American at that tournament. Um, the there were two things I wanted to ask you about. When you got injured and you were kicked off the team for that, and did you have a moment of realizing life is more than just wrestling, or what? Talk me through that. That was obviously a very defining moment in your life.
Yes, it was. And yes, there was a few lessons in there. One was that you you know people love you and care about you as long as you're useful to them. At least that's what I got out of it. It's very easy for people to forget what you've done for them, and um, you know, if you're no longer of use to them, and so whether that's right or wrong, right? I don't want to generalize the whole population, the whole human population based on that. There's some people that are more loyal than that, but that was my experience at the time. And then two, yes, I realized that for my personal sake, I need more than just wrestling. I needed something else. There was more to life than just wrestling. And so that's when I made it a priority to learn as much as I can, and become a student of not only the sport of wrestling, but also just a well-rounded individual. And that's when I made it a priority to, learn the English language so I can be well-spoken anywhere in the world, because English is a primary language. And then I wanted to come and get a college education so I have some type of job security, or at least that was
Mhm.
my train of thought when I was 16 years old. So.
Most 16-year-olds don't think that way. That showed a lot of maturity. Um, I wanted to ask you more about Bulgaria wrestling. Wrestling there and the wrestling culture here. What things are similar and what's different?
Yeah, great question. So there is more different than similar, in my opinion. The whole system is different. Obviously there's no folk style there. If you're a wrestler there, you're a wrestler. That's what you do. You do it all year round. There's no seasons, and you don't even they don't even allow you to wrestle freestyle and Greco. You just pick one, and that's what you do. And sometimes it's difficult.
Specializing.
Yeah, you're specializing, right? And I think it's good and bad, right? I think at an early age in the US, what they're doing is good, which is mixing all styles, get different perspective, even playing some different sports, right? At an early age, it's important for your development. But later on, at some point, I think it becomes better when they're specializing into one thing and they just try to become a master in their craft. And then it
Hmm.
allows them to become as good as they can be. Now, the downfalls in Bulgaria are it's corrupt, right? There's very a lot of corruption. There hasn't been really true guidance as to, or true regulations on what it takes to make a team. They just kind of pick whatever they want, and that's kind of partially that's the reason why I only competed on the senior level when I made my quote unquote return. I only wrestled for 2 years. I made the world team in 15 and Olympics in 16, and I retired because when I qualified for the Olympics, they told us that they sent an email to the national team at the beginning of the year saying that that's what it would take for me to represent Bulgaria at the Olympics. Is just whoever qualifies the weight class and earns a bid for the Olympics gets to go. And when I qualified, they tried to take that away from me, and it was very frustrating training process. And it wasn't I didn't solidify my spot until they told us, about a month or a month and a half before we had to leave to go to Brazil. They sent us to Russia they sent us to Dagestan, and they made us compete at a tournament there at Ali Aliyev. It's a very tough tournament, and they said, okay, between you and the other guy in Bulgaria, whoever does better here gets to go to the Olympics. But the problem is that was a month and a half prior, and so I ended up hurting my knee and my shoulder popped out, and so I didn't step on the mat before the Olympics for the whole time. And so I was
Hmm.
not in the best shape. I wasn't able to enjoy, you know, from April until August, I wasn't able to enjoy sponsorships. I wasn't able to enjoy the media. I wasn't able to enjoy this journey of just training and trying to peak at the right time. I was just
Yeah.
surviving and trying not to get hurt. And then I did get hurt, and I wasn't able to tell my sponsors that I'm going to be the guy. I didn't know anything for sure until a month before the Olympics. And then I couldn't even get excited because I was too beat up and I couldn't compete to the best of my
Mhm.
abilities. And so that was a frustrating process, and it reminded me why I left to begin with. And right then and there, I retired from competing, and I came to the U.S. and tried to continue my life with my wife and my education. At that time, while I was trying to do all that, I was a full-time graduate student. I was newly married, and I had a full-time job that's waiting for me at home. And they wanted me to stay overseas for 3 months to try to resecure my spot. So that was a very frustrating process.
Mhm. I mean, I imagine there was a lot of personal growth through all of that. Through
Yeah.
that process, what would you say the top three things are that you got from it to help you grow?
Yeah, great question. I right after the Olympics, I got on a journey of, I fell into depression a little bit because I didn't know what to do. I've identified myself as a wrestler my whole life, and I was trying to accomplish a goal, and then, I partially did and partially didn't. I wanted to be an Olympic champion, right? So, but when I made it there, and then I was done with it, I didn't know who I was in the real world. So I started reading a lot of books. I got some mentors. I started, just I set on this personal development journey 2.0, if you will, and
Hmm.
it helped me a lot with, helped me a lot with business. It helped me a lot with managing my thoughts and my emotions, and realizing that, hey, I actually have some control over my life. And so who I became because of this journey actually transformed me into a new individual, into a new person that's stronger, more mature, and wiser. I don't know if you've heard of this book, the Hero's Two Journeys. It's
I haven't yet.
it's a script. They use it as a script for a lot of Hollywood movies, and basically what it is it talks about how you as a person have this journey, and it's visible to the world, right? The first journey, it's visible, it's out there. You talk about your goals, about results that you achieve or don't achieve, and people see you based on your results. And then the second journey is a journey of transformation, which is what people don't really see, but it's the person that you become as a result of the journey that you're as a result of the physical things that you're chasing, right? So it's
Mhm.
the journey of transformation is your second journey, is who you become as because of that. And so I think my transformational journey and who I became because I was chasing that goal is amazing. I basically was reborn, and I became a much wiser person. And so, um, but the three lessons I learned I think, is that one, I need to take 100% responsibility for my life, and I'm 100% accountable for what happens to me in my life, right? So, a lot of times, the results that we get are based on the things that we did or didn't do, or the thoughts that we were thinking or were not thinking, and who we surrounded
Mhm.
ourselves with, right? So, I learned that I have 100% accountability of my life, and I need to, if something's not working, I need to change something. Two,
Mhm.
I learned how to control my thoughts, and based on that, they my thoughts controlled my life, right? So I learned how to talk to myself. I learned how to challenge beliefs that I had that were not true, but I was just wired that way. And I learned how to challenge my 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 thinking and my current belief system that was not serving me maybe anymore, right? And the third thing that I learned was that it's extremely important to, um, give a proper meaning to the events that were happening in your life. So, for instance, there's a formula that I learned in a book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And the formula is E plus R equals O. And it talks about events plus responsibility or response. So, sorry, not response. So, events plus response equals an outcome. E plus R equals O. So, basically, what that means is a lot of people think that the events that occur in their life happen to them, right? They're just, some are fortunate, some unfortunate. And the reality is, based on your response and how you respond to those events, you control the outcome 100%. So an example would be, we go and you have a wrestling match, and you get caught, you get caught and you get pinned. And now that was the event, you getting pinned. Now, our response dictates the outcome, because we're stuck right now, and we have a choice to make, and that choice can happen really, really quickly. We can either start going down the path of, man, I'm really unfortunate. Why did that happen to me? The ref screwed me over. I got caught, and why me? Poor me, right? And this is a victim mentality, right? And so,
Yeah.
and so the outcome of that mindset is extremely negative. And you're thinking, man, you're not really getting better because of this. You're pointing fingers and blaming other things that are outside of your control. Instead, you take that same event and you have the response now of, well, okay, I got caught. There's a lot of lessons to learn from this. Why did I get caught? I got out of position. I could have done better. Let's break it down. Let's learn what I could have done better. And let's use it as a learning opportunity for me to improve as a wrestler, so the rest of my career I don't repeat the same mistake. Right? Now the outcome is completely different. Is one, I'm in a positive mindset, I'm in a growth mindset, I am learning because of it, and I'm learning lessons, and I'm improving as a person and as an athlete because of that mindset. So same event, two completely different outcomes, just because I controlled the meaning of that event right then and there, and how I reacted to it. So that's the biggest lesson. You can apply this to anything in life, and you cannot go wrong with that.
Man, you just hit so many awesome things right there when you said that. So, in our club, we talk a lot about, taking extreme ownership. We want,
Yeah,
no matter what the outcome is, we take ownership of it, and we control what we can control, right? So, we have a value in our club that it's never the ref's fault. No matter how blatant or bad the call was, even if the ref did it on purpose, let's take that
right,
extreme. It's still never the ref's fault, ever. And a phrase I never like to hear a wrestler say is, I got caught. Well, you shouldn't have
right.
been on your back in the first place. So I loved hearing you say that. It was awesome. You just reinforced a lot of things that we do in our own club. And then also, I wanted to make sure we don't skip over how you started out. This is taking complete accountability. Complete accountability. We control what we can control, and that formula you just gave, the event plus the response equals the outcome. I
Yeah,
think we so often forget that, and it's really powerful for me to hear personally right now, with some recent events that just went on in my life. I can 100% control the outcome. I very blessed I'm still here. And so I get to control that outcome and reframe it in a new perspective, give it the proper meaning that it needs.
I
Um,
like to. Yeah, I like to say, I like, some people use positivity and negativity. I like to use the term, give it a meaning that will serve you. So something that is productive, right? Um, and so, yeah, you're 100% right. What's happening in your life right now, you are blessed in a way because you have a chance to evolve as a person and use your struggles and temporary failures or temporary struggle that you're going through, um, that we were fortunate enough that didn't kill you, right? So we're in a position to evolve as a person and grow and serve the world and serve your athletes and serve yourself and your family and etc. So yeah, you're spot on.
And to take it even a step further to help put it into perspective, and for listeners who don't know what we're referring to, is 3 weeks ago today, I suffered a heart attack in the middle of a race, and I'm very blessed to be here. And it's completely changed in the last 3 weeks my perspective on things. It's actually what gave me the impetus to really want to follow through on this meeting with you, Georgie. Is we only have so much time, and might as well get after the things that are really important to us, things we want to do. But one thing that's helped me put this into perspective, I'm still here, and I still have all of my health, all of my athletic ability, etc. It could always be so much worse. Um, if you're really looking for inspiration, I know, Georgia, you're aware of who this person is, Ben Askren, what he's going through. Like,
Yeah,
let's put it into perspective. I could be in and out of a hospital on with a double lung transplant. Like,
yeah,
if anyone's following him, his outlook on life right now is so positive, so positive. Like, he's smiling, he's getting after it, he's inspiring others. And just because the meaning and the perspective and everything can be so much different, and that's our choice. So
absolutely.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
Yes.
There's a couple other things I wanted to dive into with you. With these lessons that you have, and your perspective on life, how is it that how are you pouring this into the next generation? Why do you coach? What exactly are you doing now, and how do you take all of this in that direction?
Great question. I So coaching is much needed for anyone really in life, right? Having good mentors and surrounding yourself with positive, productive, successful individuals is key. Your environment dictates a lot of your life, right? So coaching wrestling, it was something that I wasn't necessarily planning on doing, but again, it just, I got sucked into it. I got pulled into it because when I retired from the Olympics, I was going to go on this journey of business. I had a supplement company. I started a shipping container company for shipping temperature controlled substances for infectious disease or whatever. It was for like vaccines and stuff like that. But my point is, my during COVID in 2020, my father was out in Idaho at a club, and he had a 10-year contract, and 5 years into it, he got fired without a cause because the owner's kid was moving on to college and didn't need my father anymore, so they decided to fire him. And so, that's a whole nother story we can go down on. But bottom line is, my dad packed up, and my mom, my dad and my mom, and got in a U-Haul and moved across, halfway through across the country to come to Iowa and live with me. And they lived with me for a year, and they were basically homeless at that time. And so um, that's when we got together. And my father was my coach growing up, and he's coached 9 Olympians and 25 plus world team members. He's a very, very good coach. So we sat down and we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to start a wrestling club because that's what we know how to do. And so, that's when we really, I still do. I have a mentor, and I'm always referring to him, but Russell Brunson, he was a wrestler at Boise State. Russell Brunson owns ClickFunnels and a number of other companies. But at that time, I was talking to him, and I really sat down and used his system for becoming an expert in your field, and starting a business. And so I really sat down and really well thought out what we want to do with the club. Anything from the name, from to the mission, to the vision, to all of it, and how we're gonna do this thing. And so I was thinking, okay, what's the best possible name that I can have, right? And at the time was the best wrestler. So I went on and searched the domain, and it was available, right? I'm like, why? Who doesn't want to be the best? And so I purchased the domain, the best wrestler, and my dad and I developed a manifesto for what it means to be the best. We developed a mission statement, a vision, and we purchased a building here locally, and we started on this journey of having a wrestling club. And we quickly had success. Within the first 3 years, we had a 7 Fargo champs and a world champion in our club, and we ended up winning the state of Nebraska as a club on a K through 8. And so at that time, I realized that we go in life, we go through stages. We go through, very selfish and self-centered, because you have to grow as a person, and you're chasing a career, and you're chasing results, and you're trying to acquire as much information as you can on this journey, as when you're growing. And you come to a point, which I did right after the Olympics, and now it's no longer about me. And you transition into this journey now of being from um, from being selfish and self-centered to contributing, right? You become from acquiring all this knowledge to now passing it on and giving it on to the next generation. And that's what's really, really fulfilling, is when you're not just self-centered anymore. Now you're serving the world, and you're serving as many kids as you can, and you're passing on your knowledge. And so my goal now is to really leave a legacy. And how I continue to evolve this mission is, our mission is to serve and develop uh, people so we can live in a better world. I know that if I can develop as many individuals as I can, and we teach them the values that wrestling teaches us, the hard work, the overcoming obstacles, controlling your mindset, becoming mentally tough, physically strong, and just learning how to overcome objections and obstacles, and temporary failures. All these values that we're learning from the sport of wrestling, I want to develop young individuals so they can become successful in life. And so now I've set out on a journey, because then the next obstacle that I was facing is I was limited geographically, right? We have a club here, and I couldn't serve kids that are outside of our immediate circle that can drive, and drive here and back. So now I made it a priority, where I said, you know what, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to systemize everything that I'm doing, which it's very difficult to systemize a wrestling club, right? But we systemized everything. So I sat down and I literally created SOPs for everything, and I'm still working on that. But our core moves, coaches' expectations, parental expectations, how do we communicate back and forth between coaches, parents, and athletes? Practice formats, right? What does that look like? How do we communicate with the kids, and set expectations? Educating the parents on how to guide their kids in the right way. That's why I developed a parent masterclass, so they don't confuse their kids. A lot of times, parents mean well, but the way they communicate with their kids, and the expectations that they set, and the things that they do that they don't know that they're doing, is hurting their kids' development, and they don't even realize it, right? So I realized that I need to educate the parents in order to then serve the kids to the best of my abilities. And so now, because I set out on this journey, since then we've opened the location. So we have a location in Omaha and Council Bluffs that my dad and I manage. Then we opened the location in Lincoln, Nebraska. That Ridge Lovett is going to be our head coach there. He just won an NCAA title in 2025. So Ridge is going to that's going to be his location. We have a location down in Emporia, Kansas. Dusty Spalding, he was a four-time high school state champ. Many times All American. So he wrestled in Nebraska, Lincoln. And so he's the one running that location. We just opened another location down in Reno, Nevada. Cody Dixon is running that. We were teammates at Boise State. And before you know it, I think because of the systems and processes I've set in place, and we have our own internal coaches education process. My goal is to be in 50 states and make sure that we're impacting as many kids as we can and create as many environments for these kids to be successful in as we possibly can.
Man, I love that. Did I hear you right? You said you have in Reno, Nevada, you have a club there now too?
Yep, we just announced it, and it's gonna start in September. Practices are gonna start in September.
Man, that is that is awesome. I grew up in Winnemucca, Nevada. I have family that lives in Reno. That's why that caught my ear so quickly. Um, when you said you're creating SOPs for these different things, there's one specific SOP that I'm more curious about. When you talked about educating the parents and how they interact with their athletes. I also noticed one of your taglines on Instagram is the wrestling parents coach. Can you talk more specifically about that for me?
Yeah, so I've evolved through this process as to finding my role in online, right? So I started as just an athlete and people following my journey as an athlete, right? I had a few sponsorships and just talk about them and and posting about shoes and gear, etc. And then I transitioned into, okay, now I'm going to try to show people and gain credibility on how much I know in the sport of wrestling. So I started showing different wrestling moves. I went to BJJ Fanatics. I have 3 instructional DVDs or instructionals with them. I recorded, the 2-on-1 encyclopedia, over 50 some ways to finish from a 2-on-1. I recorded hand fighting, and I systemized that. How do you hand fight, right? What does it look like when a coach says push and pull? What does it look like when it say get an angle, lower your level, win the hand fight, heavy hands, right? What are all these terms meaning, and how do you systemize it where it fits within everyone's style? So I developed that blueprint, and I recorded it with them. And then the other one is firemen's, because I love firemen, so that's one of my core moves. So I recorded a DVD with them. But in other words, I tried to establish myself as a clinician out there, as someone that knows wrestling, right? And then I realized, you know what? There is literally thousands of people teaching technique online. What people are not teaching is how are the parents guiding their kids? How are the parents making sure that they're following the right mentor? How do they know that they're at the right club? There's so many, like, and this is too mean to say, but for the lack of a better term, con artists out there, right? People that have never accomplished big things in wrestling. They've never trained an athlete that has accomplished big things in wrestling, yet they're out there speaking like they know wrestling, and they're very confident and manipulative, and they speak in a way that they're persuading parents on what to do. And it's like, you have no proof in the pudding, right? You have nothing proven to show that. And so with us being in the sport for so long, and I've competed at the highest level, and we've coached kids that have competed at the highest level. So we've been an athlete and a coach. And so we have some credibility in knowing what we're talking about. So I set out on a journey to say, okay, I want to guide the parents on how to make sure that they're with the right coach and they're following the right system. Because a lot of times for parents, they all of a sudden, because of a local hype, or locally there's a club that is currently having results, but you know parents don't realize, like, what does that mean, results? Are we just like state placers or winning little kids tournaments but not producing anything after that, right? Like, there's many ways to define success. So I set out on a journey and developed this master class for parents that has over 50 videos in there, and it talks about anything from how do you find a coach, how do you make sure you don't burn your kid out, how do you make sure that your kid gains confidence, how do you make sure that they're mentally strong, how do you make sure that you're following a system that's proven and it has long-term results, not just little kids state champions, right? How do you make sure that you're setting your kid up for success on social media and online to, where they have a brand? How do you make sure that they're picking the right college and getting college scholarship and that aligns with their long-term goal outside of wrestling, right? It's just, there's a lot of topics that I'm touching on where parents need to guide their kids the right way. How do you critique your kid's performance? Or is that something that the coach should do and you should just be a supportive parent? Knowing your role as a parent, not overstepping boundaries that you are not an expert in, right? You're an expert. The kid needs loving from their parents. They don't need 10 people yelling at them for making a mistake. Let the coach give a professional, constructive criticism and feedback, and you be the supportive figure at home that is encouraging them to fail over and over again until they can succeed, right? So there's a lot of things that I touch on in that course that I think it's brilliant, and it helps parents make the best decisions for their kids.
Man, that's brilliant. I absolutely love that. My One of my questions I have following off of that is when you have a parent in your club that is, or a group of parents that are maybe disgruntled or they don't like the way something's being coached, or they just straight contradict you. Let's say one of those parents maybe wants to volunteer and help in the wrestling room, and he's been helping for a little bit, and then you notice he's contradicting things you're saying. How do you handle that parent? What do you do for that scenario, keeping the kid in mind?
Yeah, these are two different things. So we don't allow coaches to coach with us until they go through a coach's education, and we sit down and we set the expectations correctly. Then the expectations with that person is like, hey, do you want to be your kid's coach or parent? Because you can still help in their club with the other kids, but we got to know where you sit with your own personal kid, right? Are you going to be their coach, or do you want to let me handle that, or one of our other coaches? And your job is to help with the other kids and be around your kid and support them, but let me handle coaching your kid and giving them constructive criticism, right? That's one thing. And if a parent is just a parent and they're not a coach within a club, then and they're contradicting what we're doing, then I simply sit them down and I have a conversation with them, very transparent conversation. And sometimes it leads to where, sometimes parents don't want to hear what they don't want to hear. Sometimes
Mhm.
parents are not ready to face the reality that they're screwing up their kid's career, right? And sometimes they just don't want to learn. The ego's too big and they're not willing to learn from someone that, I wrestled in the Olympics, right? And they have never
Mhm.
wrestled in their life, yet they think that they know more than what I'm teaching them. That's like going to a doctor and trusting them because they're a doctor. They're professional and they're what they're doing, and they're giving you an advice, and you're saying, what, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to go and do the exact opposite. And at that point, it's like you just don't want to be helped. And so sometimes we end up parting ways with some parents. It's like, what? I think if I don't think we're a good fit, and I wish you all the best. I'm sad to say that your kid's probably gonna fail, but you're gonna learn the hard
Mhm.
way, right? And I wish you all the best. Even though your kid has success right now, and you think that you know everything because your kid's gonna be the next David Taylor, right? The reality is,
Yeah.
you're gonna screw them up because you don't know what you're doing. And sometimes they learn the hard way. And the problem with that is by the time they realize that, it's too late. And now they use one of two excuses. They either say, well, my kid just ended up burning out. It's like, no, your kid didn't end up burning out. You screwed them up. And they are now leaving the sport of wrestling because they train so hard, but they're following the wrong system and they don't have the results that they used to have. And they use burnout as an excuse to quit. Or your ego's too big and you end up just pulling your kid away from wrestling and guiding them in a different direction because you don't want to admit that you messed up. And that's just sad, but that's the reality of it.
Man, you're very much speaking directly to some scenarios we had go on this last year, and you're giving me some great wisdom for that. And I'm thinking for this next coming year, we might actually do exactly what you just explained you've implemented. You can't be on the mat with us coaching if you haven't been through our our curriculum or our program. We have a curriculum here, but we want to make sure everyone's been through it and make sure everyone agrees with the principles and the values that we have to be on the mat. That's
And
brilliant.
we
I love that.
and we've learned and evolved with, parents hold us to a higher standard as well, which as they should, right? Because we hold them to a higher standard because we want to be the best that we can be. That's why we're called the best wrestler. It's not because we are, but our tagline is "Be the best," and what that means is we want the kids to learn to be the best version of themselves in everything that they do. If you're in the wrestling room, be the best that you can be in that room. If you're in the classroom, be the best that you can be in that room. If you are, in a relationship, be the best person that you can be in that relationship. And so, just show up as your best version. You cannot go wrong living that lifestyle, right? So, um, and parents hold us to a higher standard. So what we end up seeing is there was a few times where we had to take some time off. I had some travels um, or family situation that I just had to skip some practices. And we had some of our coaches run those practices. Man, we got feedback, softly saying, from parents that practice was not the same. The environment was not the same, right? Coach was teaching something else, and kids were talking, and it was not to the standard that they're used to. And that made me, again, what was the meaning in that? I could have very easily been defensive and say, you know what, that's just how it's going to be. I chose to evolve and implement, sit down and think, okay, how can we improve and provide better value for our parents? And so the answer was we go and develop our own internal coaches education system to, because that coach, he was not necessarily teaching them anything wrong. It was just different, right? So like, it's like running a business under two operating systems. It doesn't work. They speak different languages. So like, there's a move that we call cow catcher. You grab the chin, little kids move. You grab the chin, you go under and you flip them over. And some people in Kansas, they used to call it the snake. Hey, let's do the snake, right? Same move, just different name. Well, if now I have that coach that's very, has accolades, he's very credible. He just has a different name for the move, and is screaming or yelling at one of our kids to do the snake. Well, the kids knows the cow catcher. They don't know what the heck the snake is. So just because there's lack of consistency, it causes division and it causes confusion and it causes doubt, and then we lose credibility as a program. So I made it a priority to, we're using the same language, we're following the same moves, and we're teaching them the exact same way. So I listed out 20 pages worth of moves that we teach, and then I described them with text, and then I have a video link next to it showing how the move is done, and what language we're using, and the steps that we're the important steps in that move that we're emphasizing on, right? And so I basically systemized the whole thing, and we developed our own coaches education system. And so now our coaches, whether I'm here or someone else, the format of the practice is the same, the expectations are the same, and they're teaching a move that's one of our core moves that is the same. And so, although our personalities may be different as coaches, our system and the value that we're putting out there is the same.
So going back to your standard operating procedures, it sounds really like you are running this club as an organization, as a business, and you're making the whole thing uniform.
100%. So why did I do that, right? A lot of people are like, well, he's a for-profit and he's greedy and he just wants to make money. And it's like, okay, let me challenge you then. What if you're doing you're doing a nonprofit and you're doing it for the love of the sport, right? And now you have a board of directors that is paying a salary to your coach, or maybe they're doing it for free, okay, because they love the sport. Let me ask you this: who's serving the kids better, and who's serving more kids, and who's putting better quality content out there? Is it you, that you have a different coach every night and they're not following a system and they don't even know what they're teaching? I call it camp style teaching, meaning like one day he's showing their best move, the next day different coach is showing their best move, and kids don't know how to tie it all together into their own system, right? So there's a lot of disconnect. And what about the lack of professionalism in the way you handle your training and your coaching, and the way you show up at tournaments, and the way you have gear, and and what about what happens when a parent, now their kid graduates and they want to step away from the board? Now you have a new board person comes in. because they have a young kid and they're all passionate in the sport because they have a new kid. What happens with the turnover in the board? Where's the professionalism in that? Where's the consistency in that? Right? So um, you end up actually confusing kids, and you end up doing them disservice because you don't know how to properly develop them, but you're doing it for the love of the sport. Now, with that being said, I do have to say there's a place for those people. There's a place for those entities in those clubs. But don't tell me that what I'm doing is not correct, because what you should be doing as the small mom and pop shop is, yes, get kids to fall in love of the sport of wrestling. You know, get the masses to come and join your club with cheap entry level in the sport of wrestling, and do it because you love the sport. But don't tell me that what I'm doing is wrong, because where is your last world champion? Where is your last Fargo champion? Where is your last, when did you compete at a high level, right? You don't have the results to develop kids from seventh, eighth grade on. Like, are we going to win state titles? Are we going to go win national titles? How do we get college scholarships? How are we equipped to be a good college level athlete and beyond, like world teams, etc.? So that kid, if that kid is hungry and loves the sport of wrestling, you should provide a system and service and value to them that they can achieve, they can basically be the best version of themselves, and make sure that they're not downplaying their natural God-given talents and potential, and they maximize their potential in the sport of wrestling. At some point, coaches have to put their egos aside and realize where is their place in this whole ecosystem, right? Is your place to compete with the Askren Wrestling Academy and the best wrestler and whoever, some of these larger wrestling organizations? Or is your job to be an entry-level organization, get kids to fall in love with the sport, and put your ego aside and try to learn how you can be a better person, even if that means charging? Because, yes, I charge, but I also have full-time coaches that are very know what they're doing, and they have really good accolades. I pay my coaches to go all over, right? I have very good resources with facilities and equipment so the kids can maximize their talents. We take them all over the world to compete and see other cultures and grow as an individual, right? Those things come with expenses, right? And my time is worth something, right? It's like, you don't go to school to be a doctor for 10, 20 years and then expect to just perform things for free, right? You're an expert in a field. You should be paid for that, because there's nothing wrong with making sure your family is taken care of. So I guess what I'm saying is, um, to answer your question, you got to know where you fit in within this ecosystem and provide the best value that you can to your members, because you owe it to them.
Man, I love that. You also just hit on some other important um, topics that have come up over the last couple of years since we've had our club here. So we charge for our club as well. We're a for-profit club, and not because I'm necessarily trying to get rich on the kids, but for all of the things you just touched on. Okay,
Right.
that has created some controversy in our small little town here. We're a small town, about 2,500 people, and our club currently draws on really three surrounding communities, including ours. And at first, that was a big deal. There are still some people who refuse to join our club because we're a for-profit. Um, I think that
Yeah. So
culture
let
is
me
changing.
let me let me. Yeah, I know exactly where you're going with this. So we are our own enemies in the sport of wrestling. We're shooting ourselves in the foot, right? We wonder why these kids don't have NIL deals and why they're not better paid on the professional level. And we wonder why coaches are not better paid in the collegiate level or high school level or international level. Yet we don't want to spend money to have a better product and a better value. We're literally shooting ourselves in the foot. We have this blue collar mentality, which there is nothing wrong with it. That's gotten us to where we are now, but we're not evolving. We're not evolving, right? And people expect that you should give expertise advice, expertise system, expertise, high quality, high level facilities, high level coaching, and you shouldn't make zero money. You should lose money because you're doing that. You should take family time away from your family so you can serve hundreds of kids, but not get paid for that. And why? You don't have money on the table. Your family is being hurt because you're not spending time with them. Your kids don't see you as much as you see their kids, and you travel all over the country so they can accomplish their goals, but you shouldn't make any money for that. And here's the crazy part. This is where I call them con artists, drive me nuts is, okay, you have a nonprofit organization, right? But they don't even run it correctly. They don't even run it the right way. They run it illegally, if you ask me, right? They're a lot of coaches are the presidents of their nonprofit organization, and they're coaching, and they're still getting paid out of that. You know, when they're making the voting decisions on the nonprofit. And I'm not a nonprofit attorney, but I know a lot about nonprofits and for-profits, right? So, like, my point is, a lot of these people play the card of, hey, we're a nonprofit, we're not trying to make money. Yet they're still charging. They're providing a lower quality product, lower expectations, lower quality equipment, facilities, etc. And they're still charging money, those kids. And so at that point, where is the money going and how is it going there, right? And now you're exploiting the parents to volunteer their time to fundraise to pay your bills. I would rather just charge a parent, run it as a business, have free the parents and have their time to do whatever they want, rather than guilt trip them into lower, cheaper entry to join my club, but then expecting them to volunteer their time, run tournaments, run fundraisers, so I can pay my expenses. Like, there's always a give and take with this, right? So, like, all this nonprofit thing, in my opinion, right now, if they're not doing it the right way, I'm not saying all of them are that way. Don't get me wrong. Some do it very well, but most of the people don't do it the right way, and they're just exploiting it as a marketing scheme. And then parents are feeling like they owe it to that person because they're running a nonprofit organization.
Man, you just said that brilliantly. That was awesome. This is gold. Um, I wanted to jump into the next topic with you real quick. So we're talking a lot about investing into the next generation, and I guess it's not really the next topic. It ties in with this. So the lessons of developing a world-class wrestler. And earlier you had mentioned on there's more to life than just wrestling. Tie those two things in together while you're developing that world-class wrestler with the systems that you've created through your business. You're developing that world-class wrestler. What is it that is the same between the development of that world-class wrestler and that world-class human?
Yeah, great question. So again, it's the perspective, it's the meaning, and how you tie in the two. So there's nothing wrong with someone, because there's nothing normal about being a world class in anything, right? Winning is not normal, success is not normal. Like, that's your 1%, that's your 0.0001% of individuals. So that's just not normal to begin with. If you set out on a journey to chase greatness, you're going to be an outcast, you're going to be made fun of, you're going to be pointed at, you're going to be excluded because the masses don't. It's a lonely journey, right? And a lot of times it's depressing and it's difficult. Now, with that being said, it's extremely rewarding personally, and it's worth it. So there's nothing wrong with chasing greatness and trying to be the world class athlete. Don't feel like setting out on this journey, don't feel like you're sacrificing your life, don't feel like you're wasting your life, don't feel like you are excluding people. Those people are not going to be in your life anyways, because high achievers don't handle mediocre people very well, and mediocre people don't handle high achievers very well. You just need to surround yourself with the right people, right, with the high achievers, and you need to realize that, yes, there's wrestling. You're not a wrestler, you wrestle. And then there is you in school, in your personal life. There is you're more than just a wrestler. There's nothing wrong with going all in on wrestling to achieve greatness, but you got to know that, fail or succeed, you're more than just wrestling. That's just one thing that you do, right? You're a father, you're a husband or a wife, you're a student, you're an employee at some job, or you're a business owner, you're a friend, you're an uncle, you're so many different things in your life, and wrestling is just one of the hats that you wear. Now, you happen to be passionate about wrestling, and you happen to have God-given talents in the sport of wrestling, and you happen to have really, really high goals in the sport of wrestling. Awesome. Do that. Go all in on it. Like, go 1,000% in on it. But don't forget that that's just wrestling. Like, outside of it, at the end of the day, you go home, hopefully, and you have your family or you have your friends, and you can talk about things outside of wrestling, and that's okay. But I think as long as you know that as an athlete or a coach or an individual, that, hey, I'm going all in on this, but win, lose, or draw, or whatever, I still have my support system. I still have my life. I still have my friends and circle that um, that likes me for who I am, not just because I wrestle.
Man, I love that you're without knowing it coming right off of a lot of things I just talked about at our wrestling summit last week. So one of my talks I gave on getting your mind ready to perform when you're about to get on the mat is too often we identify what we do as with who we are. And what you just said is like you're not a wrestler, you wrestle. It's something you do. And that's something I just touched on the idea of, at the end of the day, dude, it's just wrestling. Okay. Like your life's still going to be here. And I think sometimes we need our parents to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen it a lot where, their kid just lost a tough match and their kid just gave everything they had out there and they come off the mat and they're crying, they're upset, they always want to win. And then the parent like just pours holes on their head, like just dumps on them.
That's the parent being embarrassed for themselves because their kid just lost and they look like they let them down. And you're forgetting that you're the parent and that's not your life and that's not your journey. And your kid wanted to win more than anyone, but they just lost. And you need to be supportive and you need to put your ego aside because your kid didn't just fail you and made you look like a bad parent. And you're not living your life through them. That is their life. You're there to support them and guide them. But don't take this so personal because your ego hurts now because your kid lost. Does that make sense? Now, you can give them constructive criticism and feedback so they can improve, but don't forget, that's not your life, that's their life. And as long as they want to do it, great, support them and push them and challenge them, but don't lose your marbles on them because your ego hurts that they lost the match and now you look like your kid lost the match and you're taking it like uh like you're embarrassed for your kid. It's like this is crazy. It's not even your life. So some parents need to understand that these are two different things here.
Yeah, that's I'm really looking forward to my parents and actually a bunch of parents listening to this. You're putting so much gold out there. Uh, it's been almost an hour. I don't want to take up all of your time. I do want to ask you just one more question. It seems completely unrelated, but what's the most recent book that you've read?
Great question. Uh, Gosh, what is it called? So one of them was Traction by EOS, and that's just because I'm trying to systemize my business, and I'm utilizing that in the club actually, and I'm utilizing that system to systemize it, but or that operating system to put processes in place. But Success Principle is one that I recently read by Jack Canfield, and I've reread it. I've read it like 5 times. It's a big book, but it's awesome. There's 64 principles for how to succeed in life. Number one is take 100% accountability for your life. But that one and I can't remember the name. It's uh, Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0 or something. I can't remember the title. I'm sorry. I apologize. But those are the
Okay.
books that I read recently. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Traction. I don't know if you have like a condensed, if you've heard the condensed version for other like your employees is what the heck is EOS? That's a good one to pair with that. And then I'd like to put some of these in the show notes, so I'll have you text me some of these too afterwards and
Yeah.
add them in the show notes. And then also, finally, but not least, how can people follow you? How can people find your products and learn more about you? And if they want to be able to have what you offer in their lives, how can people do that?
Yeah, there's many ways. Thank you for asking. I'm on social media, Instagram official G Ivanov. I same handle on Facebook, Twitter. I am on or the best wrestler, so literally thebestwrestler.com. And we have international trips like we're going to Bulgaria in November, and we're accepting kids from all over the country to come with us. We go to Estonia in March to wrestle at the Talent Open. We take a team with that. Last year we took 30 some kids. Uh, and we host a 20-day camp, which actually this is the shirt I'm wearing just by accident, but it's every June we do a 20-day camp that is extremely intense. It's our Fargo prep camp, and it's a 20-day 51 practices, and we have kids from all over. This year we had kids from 13 different states and Canada come here for 20 days, and we train. It's a very good camp, but yeah, like I said, Instagram, I post. Follow us. It's either the best wrestler. I think the best wrestlers page is at Best Wrestler LLC, and then my personal one is official G Ivanov. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I already follow you, and I'm going to be following you for all of this awesome content, and I very much appreciate it. Georgie, is there anything else you wanted to say to anybody, or any last thing?
For one, thank you, Justin, for having me on your podcast. Again, I'm honored and I appreciate you. We need more people like you in this world to, post information out there and have provide information for parents and athletes and coaches and people in general to become the best versions of themselves. But yeah, I mean, besides that, I'm very thankful for my family. I'm very thankful for the club and the wrestling family that we have, and follow along because the best wrestler is probably going to be in every state in the country, and we're excited to have the opportunity to meet you along the way. And if there's ever anything that if you value my uh, content, my knowledge, my wisdom, my perspective on things, reach out to me, ask me. I'll be happy to talk to you, answer any questions on DM me, right? I'll be happy to help however I can because that's my mission. That's what's fulfilling for me. I want to impact as many kids as I can, as many lives as I can. And that's what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, man. You're already impacting in big ways. And I would say some people said that drawing you as my first match at the Masters Nationals was bad luck, but man, I'd say it was the best luck. I'm getting to
Yeah.
meet you and all of this. So I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
I
So
appreciate you. Thank you.
have a good one.
You too.